Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday evening to you all. Hope you guys are having a great night out there so far and enjoying the ending to your day, having a great work week out there as we're about to enter our Friday, which we're all happy about. Got you an update on what's going on with the storm system ongoing right now. It's beginning to snow in portions like Chicago, already been snowing in cities like Milwaukee, and this will continue to work its way across the Great Lakes region, Lake Michigan, into Michigan, and then eventually make its way into Detroit, even Cleveland overnight tonight. And we'll give you an update on what's expected with this first system in areas of the Northeast. This isn't going to be a huge event for you folks, but certain areas like in Pennsylvania, surrounding sections of states around Pennsylvania could see accumulating snow. So we're going to talk about that, give you the latest and greatest information on that. But of course, a good chunk of this video is trying to figure out what's going to happen with this storm system at the end of this coming weekend into early next week, where there is a high ceiling kind of storm where this could be a powerful nor'easter. I'm not going to try to compare it to anything because we don't really know everything to what's going to happen with it. We don't even really have, I would even say, a great concrete forecast on what's going to happen. What we do know is there's going to be a storm system that's going to impact people, but is it going to be kind of one of those powerful nor'easters that you know we talk about for years to come? I don't know anything like that, but we're going to talk about what we do know in this. We're going to keep it real with you guys and try to figure it out for you folks. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. It gives others an opportunity to do so too. You ever consider joining my channel? Got around 25, 26 incredible members that support me every month in that way. And it goes a long way, and I really appreciate every single one of you that have joined. And then just the entire family atmosphere we got here. Really appreciate y'all. So let's get going. We look at watches and warnings out here. Winter storm watches now up for areas of the Dakotas and even northwest Minnesota, even areas of Montana. This is ahead of the system coming. That's going to be a significant storm. This isn't for what's going on right now. Winter storm warnings up for the system ongoing. You got winter storm warnings up in Milwaukee. Still continuing in areas, basically the entire northeast section of Iowa, southeast sections of Minnesota, and western and southwest sections of Wisconsin. But this will begin to taper off later tonight. Winter weather advisories up for Michigan, and then just winter weather advisories up for you folks in Pennsylvania and the southern tier of New York State. No winter storm warnings up for these areas. We'll get a little bit closer here. Just winter weather advisories. I would not be surprised one bit if by the time we wake up tomorrow, some of these counties are upgraded to winter storm warnings. So we're going to give you the latest information on this. So let's start off in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. We'll talk about what's going on right now in Chicago. You have a little bit of a kind of a dry gap here where the radar hole is kind of filling in and moisture is really filling in now. Chicago getting a lot of reports of just drizzle, especially the closer you get to the actual shoreline of Lake Michigan, but just west, the western suburbs of Chicago, almost every report is all snow, but you still have some reports of just rain. And, we kind of knew this was going to happen, had the potential to start off just as rain. But I think here in the next couple hours, you will switch to all heavy snow and the potential for heavy snow. Snowing pretty good up here in Milwaukee. Snow accumulating on the grass, snow accumulating on the grass, snow accumulating on the grass. Let's not get any closer than that. But all this moisture you see, of course, we're only in vision of the National Weather Service radar out of Chicago, but this will continue to work its way east. Hit areas like Toledo, Detroit, Cleveland overnight, and Detroit, maybe several inches of snow could fall. Cleveland, a few inches of snow could fall. Grand Rapids, a few inches of snow. And certainly another accumulating snow event for these sections, and this will eventually work all the way into the Northeast. So let's talk about what the radar can do tonight. Notice there's a lot of deep convection down here in Indiana and Illinois. We'll keep this going here, and we're going to have to go up here and click this to get her moving here. And this snow will last for the next several hours. It's not going to be a long-lasting storm. Might mix in Chicago, but eventually you switch to all snow. And when you finally do, I think that you could get at least a couple to a few hours of very heavy, wet snow. We'll stop. This is around 10 p.m. tonight here in the next couple hours. Heavy snow falling at this point potentially in northern Indiana, southwest Michigan, western areas of Michigan, and this is continuing, being enhanced by the lake. So if you're along the immediate coastal regions, for example, Milwaukee, let me know in and around that area how much snow you end up getting. I certainly think y'all could at least get about a half a foot, maybe more. But you keep this going. Snow's knocking on the doorstep right around midnight for Detroit. Starts snowing probably in Cleveland just after midnight. Snowing still pretty heavily in areas of Chicago in the wee hours of the morning. And I think it'll still be snowing by the time you folks wake up in Green Bay to Milwaukee to Chicago. All the way to Madison, Wisconsin. I still think you'll have some light snow flying around. You're probably going to wake up to some pretty heavy snow in Cleveland. Heavy snow falling, still snow falling at a moderate pace in Detroit as you're waking up for your Friday morning. And I think the snow, you could be dealing with flurries, as far as, maybe as long as lasting all the way until tomorrow evening in Chicago, with a little bit of lake effect energy kind of flying in from the north. But you get a kind of a flow out the northeast, so you get this more uncommon lake effect snow bands kind of firing off and shooting southwest off Lake Huron and things like that, and Lake Erie. So you don't see that quite as much, but you do sometimes with just there's a weird flow going on out there. And then after that, we're getting into tomorrow night and just got some lake effect snows kind of falling, and then here comes the next system trilling right behind it. So snow, the rest of this system, I think this is a little overdone because some of this has already fell, but another half a foot of snow. I don't know how much snow you got on the ground right now in like Milwaukee, Green Bay, even Chicago. I'm pretty sure in Chicago you don't have anything on the ground right now, but the blend of all models going for a couple inches of snow in Chicago. I'm going to be very interested to hear the reports in and around that area as we're waking up tomorrow morning. Hopefully for you winter weather fans, you get some appreciable snow. You're getting into Michigan, basically from central to southern Michigan. You guys could get 4 to 6 inches of snow. I think Detroit could flirt with the 6-inch mark. We'll see what we see out here. Northwest Ohio, a few inches of snow is possible, and then northern, especially kind of northern to northeast sections of Indiana, I think you're good for maybe 2 to 4 inches of snow. And in Cleveland, maybe around 2 inches of snow from this, certainly possible. I think the National Weather Service is going for around 2 to 3 inches of snow in the city. So we're going to switch it to the northeast, and really we're going to zone in here because I think this will be the majority of the area that gets hit. And this begins to move in tomorrow morning, and it might start off as a burst of snow in Pittsburgh, maybe, but I think the majority, about 95% of this is going to be rain. And then check it down here. It's snowing in the higher elevations of West Virginia, all rain for you folks outside the higher elevations in western portions of West Virginia. But snowing in these higher hills right here in southern Pennsylvania. And there's going to be a chance for this to briefly tomorrow morning start off as a few snowflakes and maybe sleet pellets here in Washington, D.C. But if it does, it's not going to last long. But just north of the city, northern sections of Maryland into Pennsylvania, this will definitely start off with some snow. At this point, it's snowing at a pretty good rate in Erie. I think you guys have a chance to get upgraded to a winter storm warning. The snow begins to move into Buffalo around late morning tomorrow. Another system moving in. You guys are already above average snowfall-wise. Snow begins to knock on the door of Scranton just after lunchtime tomorrow. Philadelphia is way over here, so I think it's going to be mainly rain, at least at the beginning of this storm. This continues, and you think it's heading right over to the northeast, New England, to be a big storm. But what happens is you got some influence from the north, like a high pressure that forces this low pressure system. It kind of shunts it southeast. So this is looking like, it's heading right into the northeast, New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, but really, it doesn't get that far. But I can tell you it's trended a little bit deeper into New England the last few model cycles. So that's something to watch for sure. Binghamton, this is now looking like you could get at least a few inches of snow from this. And we keep this going, and by the time we're getting into, Friday evening, it's already wrapping up for Buffalo. Wrapping up for, pretty much all of the western half of Pennsylvania. When we go on and switch it to our folks kind of in southern New England and how this can unfold tomorrow, and we'll have to go and speed this up here in time. And here it comes. This is trended to a little bit more snow, so the snow might make it all the way up into about central New York State, and I think there's going to be a sharp cutoff somewhere in here. Might make it sneak all the way into the far southern counties of Vermont, maybe even New Hampshire. And then, as we're getting into, I would say, late Friday night, after midnight, I think this rain could switch to maybe a heavy last-in burst of snow for New York City, areas of western Long Island. It's snowing pretty heavily here in Just off the coastline of Connecticut and Rhode Island, you got some heavy snow falling. Massachusetts, snow falling. It tries to get to Buffalo, but I think you get some flakes falling in that area. Certainly possible, but the beginning of the storm is going to be all rain for New York City. But look at you guys down here. I mean, look at northern New Jersey is another area that I think could get 3 to 4, 5 inches of snow from this. You're getting all your snow in these areas right into here in March, and you got another system coming. And then this continues, and in the wee hours of the morning, Saturday morning, it could be snowing pretty heavily in the New York City area. And then the storm really begins to strengthen. And I mean, I think as we're getting into Saturday morning, you have some kind of wrap around, if you will, snow showers that try to jolt into southern New England, Baltimore. This will be kind of a sneaky scenario where you could have some heavier convective bands that really kind of fly in from the northeast into southern New England. But if we actually take it back down, let's go back to Pennsylvania. If we actually go back down to Pennsylvania, at the very tail end of this, go all the way to the end, the very, very tail end of this, it could snow as far south as Philadelphia. We'll see what happens here. Could end as a little bit of snow Saturday morning for you folks in Philadelphia. Certainly possible. National Weather Service, I mean, they're going for over a half a foot of snow in Erie. In northeast Ohio, this little snow belt right here is always favored. Just south of Buffalo, maybe a half a foot around Buffalo, 3 or 4 inches. Binghamton, a few inches of snow. State College, 4 to 5 inches of snow. These hilly areas right here in southern PA, I think you could certainly get at a minimum a couple inches. In these higher elevations of West Virginia and Maryland, several inches of snow is possible, especially once you get above 4,000 feet up, which isn't a whole lot of areas in this region, but there is some higher ranges. Pittsburgh going for maybe a half inch of snow. Hopefully you guys get more than that, but it's not a favorable track, I can tell you that. Northern New Jersey, I mean, you could get several inches of snow. Just outside the New York City suburbs, I mean, you could certainly get some appreciable snow. It's always a different ball game here in northern New Jersey. You got some higher terrain in northern New Jersey, and you guys have been hit very hard. You're always favored more than New York City is, obviously, for obvious reasons. But you move into this region right into here, and snow expected. I mean, it's a pretty sharp cutoff, right? I mean, maybe a couple inches of snow up into southern Vermont, but the higher regions, the hilly regions of western Mass could certainly get a couple inches of snow. But I mean, in western Connecticut, you could get 3 to 4 inches of snow from this. So, you haven't had any blockbuster events in this part of the country like you can. But there might be one coming, but you've had a lot of minor to moderate events, especially in southern New England. So we'll see what happens here. So let's go on and talk about this big system potentially coming. We know something's coming. You see this swirl right up here in the corner of your screen? That is the piece of energy that, let's see if we can get this to work, that'll eventually dive into here. Then it gets pushed south, will come all the way kind of in this direction, and then really try to strengthen somewhere into here. So there it is. Starts off from here. I mean, it's not going to take this exact line, but you kind of get what I'm saying, right? And it's going to potentially bring a corridor of snow all the way potentially through here. And I think right into here, it could be maybe the heaviest. And then it'll be the heaviest again somewhere into here. But trying to figure out where, that's a big question. So that's what we're going to try to do in this video. But that is your energy. So let's start off by talking about the north central U.S. We're done talking about the first system. Here comes the second system. This is why you have winter storm watches up for areas of North Dakota and surrounding regions. As we're getting into Saturday morning, moderate to heavy snow breaks out over the Dakotas, especially and mainly North Dakota. And then the track of this low pressure does not favor areas like in Wyoming, really, or western South Dakota, as the low pressure is literally flying right overhead. And just the dip in the jet stream, which is digging into the east, it favors this low pressure to dig down. Okay, talk about more of that here in a second. But I mean, this brings snow, heavy stripe of snow into North Dakota Saturday morning. This begins to move into Minnesota Saturday morning and the Saturday afternoon. Minneapolis will be another snowy Saturday for you folks. Then look here down here in Iowa. You got more snow moving down. Snow can make it as far south as northern Missouri. Okay, and this continues. makes its way through. Jury's still out at how much snow, Minnesota could get, but this is some moderate snow falling, but some heavier snow down here in Iowa and northern Missouri. But this continues. Low pressure gets a move on, and then it's on out of here by the time we're getting to the end of our weekend. Okay, how much? Well, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. We continue to keep this moving, right? Here's the snow in northern Missouri. Watch out. It's just one model run. We'll try to figure it out. This could bring a little bit of snow for areas a little bit deeper, kind of more south in Illinois. Mentioned that this morning. But look what happens. The moisture really lightens up, turns into more of that light blue. And this is when I think you have kind of like a transfer. You kind of lose the energy influence up here, and this really becomes a southern kind of stream kind of setup. And what happens is we're getting into Sunday morning, you got winter weather breaking out over kind of the southern Appalachian Mountains near Boone, Banner Elk, southwest VA, higher elevations of West Virginia. And here's the low pressure right here, and watch what happens. We'll stop this here. This is for Sunday, for your Sunday afternoon. You got snow falling not just in Virginia, but even outside, some of the foothills of Virginia, and even like central Virginia. You're snowing in the middle of the day, warmest part of the day Sunday. So really tells you, what something weird can happen with a storm. And then you lose the precipitation somewhat again, and then I believe you get some reconnection with this northern piece of energy and southern piece of energy. And then I really think this begins to get more amplified. Here comes the low pressure, and we'll go on and get a little bit closer here. But really quickly, we'll talk about the snow for you folks up here. Okay, this is the first system, right? And we're going to talk about you folks in the Northeast here in a second, okay? Because that's obviously the area we really need to watch out for a high impact system. This is the first system that we just talked about, and then here comes the addition with the second system. Okay, adds more snow for these areas it's already seen it, but doesn't really increase it much for this area. But look, shows a little bit of snow further south, and brings a little bit of a mean all the way down to the southern Appalachian Mountains. So that's something to watch. But this is just gonna add maybe a few to maybe as much as several more inches of snow up here for the northern terrain of the country here. So we'll watch that. But let's go on and switch it to the Northeast as we're getting into Sunday evening. Precipitation starts to enter the field again in Pennsylvania, where you've had storm after storm, similar scenario. Rain along the I-95 corridors is all rain in Washington, D.C. Snowing at a light to moderate pace across Pennsylvania. Same areas again getting hit. This is all rain for New York City as we're getting to Monday midday. And here's the low pressure down here. If you look way down here at the bottom of your screen, there's your L. It's beginning to deepen. And as it's deepening, it's throwing back heavier precipitation inland into the Northeast. So this is around Monday evening of the 14th. I'm sorry, of the 13th. Heavy rain in the Delmarva area, snowing in northern New Jersey, raining in New York City, raining in most of Connecticut. But watch, we're getting into the middle of the night, Monday night, like midnight. Look at the heavy rain switching to heavy snow as far south as northern Delaware. Philadelphia, even northern sections of Maryland. And then you got moisture getting up here too. You continue to get this going. You're getting into Tuesday morning. You're with a really interesting scenario. I'm going to show you the GFS too, but this is Tuesday morning. You are getting rocked by a heavy snowstorm in all of New Jersey, New York City, most of Long Island, snowing like crazy in eastern PA, Binghamton snowing like crazy. It's snowing in Connecticut. I would argue you probably have some gusty winds with this, maybe near blizzard conditions. And look at this low pressure. I mean, at this point, we're getting into mid-morning, Tuesday morning. It's a 973 millibar low pressure. It's dragging down its own cold air. At the same time, it's throwing heavy precipitation into the cold air. And you have extremely heavy snow falling along the I-95 corridor for them. Northern Delaware, all the way up to Boston, and everybody in between. You keep this going, and it really goes from hammering New York City at this point, still Tuesday afternoon. It's still snowing like crazy in New York City, Long Island, to really slamming, Boston. It's a sub 970 millibar low pressure. So this is an all-out nor'easter at this point, just spinning around off the coast of the Northeast. This time it's starting to bring more heavier precipitation into Maine in the form of all snow. And this continues, just throwing heavy precipitation into inland New England. And it just continues. And then finally begins the weekend, gets kind of pushed south, and then that's all she wrote. it almost lasts like 3 days. Okay, it's a high impact, long duration event. Now we look at the GFS, you're thinking, Mitch, well, don't just show us the worst case scenario, but we look at the GFS. The GFS wasn't liking the idea of a storm. GFS kind of the same way, comes in Monday morning, a little bit colder initially, but not a lot of heavy precipitation. We're getting into Monday evening, snowing in a moderate, a decently heavy pace just north of New York City. Getting into southern New England, and then it really begins to intensify at this point, just not as crazy as the Euro. So Tuesday morning of the 14th, you got a snowstorm ongoing in southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, all of Mass, just about Connecticut, and it begins to deepen, kind of do what the Euro is doing, but obviously not in the same exact position. Meanders off the coast of Cape Cod, Nantucket, and really starts to deepen here. But like I said, not as strong as the Euro. But look at these dark blues you see here. That's some heavy snow in and around and just south of the Boston area. And it's just throwing snow into here, down to the down east areas and southern sections of the coastal regions of Maine. And then it heads on out a little bit quicker, a good bit quicker actually than the Euro. So it's not a snowstorm basically at all for New York City. As opposed to the Euro, you have feet of snow. And I'll go on to show you what all you guys want to see. And that's, hey Mitch, show me what the Euro is showing. Let's show you what the GFS is showing first as far as snowfall accumulations. Okay. This is the first system, and then this is the second system. I mean, look, that's a lot. That's a lot. The GFS always overdoes stuff. Okay, showing 2 feet of snow, and 1.5 feet of snow in Boston. You go, just in the central Mass, over 2 feet of snow. Accumulating snow, near New York City, but just a few inches of snow. But between now and the next, 5-6 days, slams these regions. Now you look at the European, okay, and we got to switch to the 12Z. This is what the European says. Between now and about this time next week, hammers Binghamton, hammers Albany. It slams northern New Jersey with almost 3 feet of snow. And remember, this is also adding. This is between both systems. I need to keep reminding you guys of that. But once you get over here, this is just the second system. So it wants to put about 11 inches of snow on Boston. 8 to 12 inches of snow in New York City. But look at this and get excited all you want if you're a winter weather fan. But really, you need to look at the ensembles. This is the ensemble run from the European from the first system. This is for the second system. Okay, pretty strong mean still. Gives about 6 to 7 inches in Boston. But once you get just west of Boston, you got over a foot snowfall mean in Mass, northern Connecticut, northern Delaware. You're getting to 8 to 12 inches of snow. New York City, not quite as high, not quite as crazy, a few inches of snow. But between both systems here and the southern tier of New York State and southern sections and the valleys of New York State, well over a foot snowfall mean down here. Okay, pretty impressive for March standards. So March is here, and it's here to just tell you, winter's not over. So you look at winds, guys, and this is just kind of a shot in the dark here, but we'll look at the European, which is a worst case scenario. Winds will begin to pick up for all of southern New England, all of the Northeast. As we're getting into Monday about midday, winds will begin to gust to around 20, maybe as much as 30 miles per hour. And then as we're getting, I think, into Monday, I would say overnight Monday into Tuesday morning, let's go all the way to Tuesday morning. This is when it could really start gusting to 30 to 40 miles per hour in the Delmarva, around Long Island, especially southeast Mass and Rhode Island. And then this is when the low pressure really cranks up and gets really close to like Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod, where it'll gust to hurricane force winds, almost 70, maybe 75 mile per hour. In and around the Boston area, the Europeans saying 40 to 50 miles per hour. And this would be blizzard criteria for southern New England. It's very gusty everywhere too. And then look at this area of winds working its way into the southern regions of Maine. And you got Tuesday afternoon, and don't take this as a forecast, guys. It's just a model run. We're showing you the worst case scenario just because we're showing you that this does have a high end potential. It has a high end boom potential. Okay. But these would cause major issues, major power outages. And I know the leaves probably haven't budded out up here, but this would be a heavy, wet snow. It's going to weigh down trees, and it would certainly cause issues. 40 to 50, 60 mile per hour winds in southern New England, which, happens in nor'easters. You guys, know all about this, but, that's the worst case scenario. It certainly is. So I will tell you, too, there's a severe weather threat as this system moves in, the second system. There's a slight risk for severe weather for our Saturday in Arkansas and then eastern Oklahoma. This is, all threats are possible, but I think this is mainly a damaging wind and a hail threat. But we'll watch this. Nothing that's, alarming or anything like that. And there's a risk for day 4 also, which is our Sunday. Same kind of deal. Okay, a little bit of a low level jet ahead, a little bit of shear. And I think the atmospheric players will be out there for a little bit of a damaging wind threat, hail threat, and even a small tornado threat will be possible. We'll talk more on that when we know more and when we get in these short range cam models. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have yourselves a great rest of your night.